what you know about purification to save the heart of a nation. Let burn a talking wood, bringing light to a talking wood. Not your largest wisdom and love, vision truth below as a bird. Let burn a talking wood, let burn a talking wood.
Welcome to the Affirm Life Daily Podcast. I'm Cynthia Mitchell, your host. As always, I invite you to check out the website, affirmlifedaily.com, for more information, for resources, to view previous podcasts. There's just a ton of information on there. There's affirmations, poetry, whatever's your flavor, you're going to find it on the website. So I want to introduce my special guest today. We're going to be talking about the power of community with Dr. Sundiata. So I want to give a brief introduction. I'm going to read this off my phone. So Dr. Sundiata is the founder of Grow Dialogue, LLC, and the creator of the theory of indivisibility, which he will tell us more about during the podcast. He specializes in anti-oppression, conflict resolution, systems thinking, conscious parenting, unschooling, and collaborative culture facilitation. With a doctorate in organizational leadership and over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur, educator, social change agent, and organizational leader, his consultation and facilitation work are informed by theory and by practice. I can tell you firsthand, he practices what he preaches. He is involved. He is helping to change the world. Welcome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Oh my goodness, it's such a pleasure to be here, and thank you for that awesome introduction.
Absolutely. And also tell them where they can find your work.
You can find all of my work at sustainablesolutionsmedia.com.
Okay, great. So, and I will put that link also when I post this to my website and to YouTube. I'll put that link so you guys can find him, follow him, and support his work. You can learn a lot from this man. So we're going to start off with my first question to you, which is just kind of a really broad general question. It may seem really simple, but it can get deep and complex. Mm-hmm. What is community?
What is community? The first thing that comes to mind is the fact that the English language has so many multiple meaning words. And also a lot of words that folks, take the liberty to put their own spin on. With that being said, to me, at this stage of my life and my journey, community to me speaks to the concept of a group of people who share values, resources, skills with one another, and collaborate to meet each other's, basic needs, social needs, practical needs. That's what community means to me.
Yeah. And I think too, it's a big part of our emotional needs and spiritual needs.
Indeed.
Because I think as, spiritual beings, we have our blood families and we have our soul families and we have our community family. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
I think that impacts so many of us. And I think that's why, part of the reason why there is such an epidemic of people feeling, emotionally unequipped to deal with life because we've lost that sense of community. People feel isolated and alone.
Yeah, indeed.
So, but I loved your definition because community is so all encompassing. And I think a lot of people kind of lose sight of that. They just think, well, it's who you live by. You know what I mean? But that's not real community. That's just who you live by.
Yeah.
That's not. Yeah.
That's a neighborhood.
Right. That's a neighborhood. That's not community. That's not what we're talking about here. So, with that being said, like, what do you think are the factors? Like, how and why did we lose our sense of community?
Well, this is something that, as you know, I've done a lot of research on. I intentionally set out to find answers to questions like that several years ago. And ultimately, it led to a body of work that I created called my theory of indivisibility. And basically with the theory of indivisibility, I wanted to understand the evolutionary origins of pretty much everything in our existence. Everything in the natural world in terms of natural systems, but also human-made systems, our social systems. And what I learned was that, everything on this earth, if me being someone who has embraced the scientific viewpoint of evolution and the natural, evolution of all living things, um, I believe that it's a result of our dominant social systems and how they have evolved over thousands of years away from our our indigenous ancestors, I'll say this: our indigenous ancestors who, early human societies, based on the current, evidence, they lived they lived communal. They lived in hunter-gatherer bands, and they were egalitarian. They shared things. They shared responsibilities. They shared resources, and that later evolved, after the agricultural revolution about 10,000 years ago. It evolved to where humans became more sedentary because they began to farm. So they weren't moving around as much. And then they went from being in bands of about, 10 to 20 people to now having tribes up to, 100 or so people. And within the tribal element, they still held a lot of those egalitarian, ways. But again, as time moved along and different forces continue to emerge and evolve, power over systems. And I like to say that, human societies they went from being where power with systems were the dominant systems to where power over systems became the dominant systems. After the agricultural revolution, power over systems became more dominant and more prevalent for a lot of reasons.
So what is a power over system? Can you define that?
Yeah. So power over systems are rooted in the control of other living things, people, and nature. People
there you go. That's what we're in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the control, just the idea that, hierarchies in terms of, certain people having more power than other people. Whereas in power with, social systems and dynamics, they're rooted in collaboration.
Yes.
No one has more power than the other. We come together, we meet each other's basic needs based on our strengths, our skills. We share those things, so that's the difference. And, throughout history, as these different social systems power over social systems began to emerge, social systems like patriarchy, social systems like religion, social systems like ownership, and then eventually capitalism, etc. These systems began to take people further and further and further away from community. And capitalism, especially after the Industrial Revolution, accelerated that process, 100-fold. And now you're in a situation where it's when folks are living in community and supporting each other and sharing things, it's harder to sell them every little gadget and every little, device and every, whereas, and as capitalism has continued to grow and grow and grow, and capitalism says that everything must continually grow, and that's not how nature works. We both know that. But capitalism says that everything must continually grow. So guess what that means? Now they started marketing to those people who were in their villages saying everyone needs their own home. So what, you all share land, you may share, and cohabitate in these spaces that people call homes. But now we have this thing called the American dream where everyone deserves their own home. That's what success looks like. And now we have this thing called the nuclear family, where you go off as a nuclear family, not the multi-generational village vibe, or community vibe, but as a nuclear family. And as, with your own home, you're living the dream. You got to buy your own refrigerator, your own ladder, your own saw, your own, blender. And now that's more things that, the system of capitalism that needs to constantly grow can sell, into, these neighborhoods and households and et cetera.
Yeah, no, that's deep because yeah, you can see how it was just like gradually, and it was all strategically planned to take you in these baby steps to what we have now, where it's like no community. Like you said, we don't even see the value in like I said, generational family, living together and stuff like that. And I would say, for me, I have definitely been, I don't want to say a victim, but succumb to a lot of that thinking, in my own life, because you just feel like, well, that's how it should be. That's the
Yeah.
way it is, because
Yeah.
we have just been so pulled away from that true meaning of community, that true meaning of family, and how we could build so much greater by staying together rather
Yeah.
than separating.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I love your answer, and it just weaves perfectly with natural law, because natural law is, based on that same thing. No one has power over another. Like, what would give you as just another human the right to have authority or power over me?
Mm-hmm.
We have to work in collaboration, not, in hierarchy. So
Right.
that was deep. So, so now we kind of see how we lost our way. What do you feel like? Because I know, what do you feel like some of the main ways that they were able to kind of pull this off? Because I know one of the main things that I feel like they do is the scarcity, that
Mm-hmm.
artificial scarcity. Oh, there's not enough. There's not enough. So it makes you, oh, well, I just better get a whole bunch and save it for myself and not share and not be a part of this community because I'm so scared I won't have enough. And then the other one, I feel like that's a major one, is the poisoned worldview. They make you think the nature of people is horrible. If you didn't have us to protect you from your neighbor, oh Lord, they would just
Yeah.
come and stab you to death. Like, really? No, they probably wouldn't. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
So
You
what do
named it.
you think are some of the main tactics that they use to get us thinking like this?
I mean, you literally just named, a couple of them,
Yeah.
the fear mongering, the scarcity, elements, the dependency,
Yes.
elements, that are infused in our, dominant social systems that make people believe that they are, dependent on, power over systems to protect us. Like you just gave the example, to not only protect us, but to think for us, you know, we're fortunate enough that we're like living during a time where we have access to, information that previous generations didn't. So we're able to push back against those forces in ways
Yeah.
that like my parents' generation as they were growing up didn't. And,
Yeah.
and previously, like, those generations literally, if the preacher said it or a teacher said it or elected official said it, it was law, you know.
Yes.
Whereas
Yes.
we grew up in a time and we grew up in an era where we had more wiggle room to think for ourselves and to question things and find,
Yeah.
and more importantly, find other people who thought like us, even if they didn't live in our neighborhood,
Yeah.
etc. Whereas in previous generations, if it was in a textbook, it was law because there wasn't continual updates of information on the internet and things like that. So they had
Yeah.
the information was so static. They were able to kind of be, manipulated
Yes.
in ways. Previous generations were able to be manipulated and pacified, and misdirected way more efficiently than we are today. We have so many ways that we can communicate and get the message out, like a
Yeah.
podcast like this, for example, where we can find like-minded people, like we do at Collectively Sustainable, for example. So yeah, some of those tools of oppression, that as I call them, and as in my theory of indivisibility, I have a list of tools of oppression and then tools of liberation. And you name some of them. I just named some of them in terms of the scarcity, and also like laws. Laws is another way,
Hmm.
that they, another tactic, another tool. A lot of laws aren't just, you know, just because it's written into
Not
law
even
doesn't mean it
remotely.
makes sense. Yeah. A lot
Yeah.
of laws don't make sense. Moral judgment is another, tactic that they use and I'm using they generally, but I'll say the powers that be historically, use moral judgment. They use religion to make people believe that, if they don't make certain choices in a certain way, in a very standardized way, that they are somehow, going to hell. or a corrupt individual. And, it's to the point where the masses we police ourselves, again, generally speaking, I'm using we generally speaking. But that's how they did it for so long.
Yes.
Before, people like us have been able to unlearn and learn new things to free ourselves from those messages. But those are some of the tools.
Okay, yeah, that's awesome because you're right. The legal system is so corrupt, and it's designed strictly to keep them in power. I call them the powers that shouldn't be. It's to keep their control system going. It's for no other purpose. It is not for our protection. It's not for our betterment. It's not for our well-being. It's to keep their control system in place and going.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Definitely.
I think what you said was absolutely on point. So how do we build back? How do we start building real community again? And tell me, how do we do it? And then what would that look like?
Yeah. So, the way that we do it is kind of like really, trusting our intuition first and foremost. Because I think a lot of folks are feeling it. A lot of folks are feeling that tension in their bodies and their minds and their spirits, that the ways of convention and dominant society don't feel in alignment with our most authentic selves, our higher selves, our truest selves, however, folks want to, say that. And it's trusting in that and, going within, and then it's finding other people who are seekers, who are, getting together and organizing. And it's like finding your people is next, finding your people and then being willing to do the work. And the work looks like showing up, in community, and supporting other folks who are organizing around building community in ways that align with your values and your beliefs and your values and beliefs. And it looks like also doing the work of unlearning, dominant systems, unlearning power over and control in the ways that you're showing up as an oppressor, with yourself first and foremost, and also
Yes.
in relationship with others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so important. I did a whole podcast episode just on unlearning because I think people overlook that. They just look for new information and forget what you need to unlearn before you even look for the new information because
Yeah.
you won't even be able to absorb it if you're so full of programmed information already. You know what I mean? You'll get so much cognitive dissonance you can't even take in the new information. So unlearning, I think, is critical. It is imperative. And people really have to kind of start with that step, the unlearning and the shadow work, and so that we can
Yeah.
start to trust ourselves again, because
Indeed.
it can be hard to trust your intuition and trust yourself when from every angle, from every media source, whether it be music to movies to social media, is telling you about your lack of worth,
Yep.
your powerlessness,
Yep.
you're disempowering you. So you're getting all these messages that even if you're not consciously, you're like, no, I trust myself. Subconsciously, maybe not so much.
Yep.
Because I know that is something that I'm still working on, continually trusting my intuition, continually knowing I'm strong enough to handle challenges and things that I have to face without depending on old thought patterns or old behaviors that don't serve me anymore.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to get caught in those patterns. So I'm not saying that it's just, oh yeah. It takes work,
It does.
but it's worth the work. It's worth the shadow work. It's worth going to those dark places and really feeling that pain and dealing with those traumas.
Indeed.
And just admitting, like, dang, I got brainwashed, I got tricked, I got hoodwinked. Just admitting it, and then at least you have a jump off point. Like, okay, they got me, but now they're not gonna get me no more. I'm gonna do this unlearning. I'm gonna do this inner work. So I think I think you're definitely on point with that. So like when we're talking about the new communities, can you describe, like, envision what it looks like? And also I would like you to talk a little bit about the way we met, the community that we're both in, because I personally feel like that is the way. I think it's the way. I think it's the way of the future.
I agree, and the way of the future in terms of like collectively sustainable, the community that we organize with at collectivelysustainable.org.
Check it out. Check it out, y'all. Collectivelysustainable.org. It is a powerful community to be a part of. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. And all the other communities out there who are doing similar work, it's all so meaningful. For me, I was, I wrote a guide called After the Protest, Organize, a radical guide for creating sustainable change. And in that guide, which again is at the website I mentioned at the beginning of this, where everyone can find all of my work, I wrote like basically like a manifesto of all the things that, all the awarenesses I came into about the ways that I was causing harm and the ways that I was oppressing other people with my thought processes and beliefs and actions, and all the ways that I chose to reject those things and walk away from doing those things. And then all of the social systems that I saw that were inherently causing harm to others, and how I chose to transition away from those. I read all this in this guide. Like, for example, I used to be a public school teacher,
Okay.
and I come from a family of, public school teachers and administrators. And as I came into this awareness of, how social systems work through systems thinking, et cetera, I was in school at the time. I was working on my doctorate degree when I got introduced to systems thinking, and I was teaching. And the more I learned, the more it became uncomfortable for me to uphold a system like the dominant conventional education systems that I felt like were dimming the light on so many young people who because it tries to fit people in a very, tight box. And it says, if you fit in this box, great, you're a champion, you're a success. But if you don't, you're a failure, right?
Right.
And it's literally conditioning people for social stratification. It's conditioning people so that we can have the haves and have nots. And the
And for
reality is,
order following, because it's such indoctrination to follow orders without question.
Indeed. All of those things were so embedded, and it became so clear to me that I can no longer be a part of that system. And I transitioned away. And not only did I walk away from teaching, but I started an unschooling program, a program that was rooted in young people learning based on their innate interests and talents. And the thing I loved about that was that the paradigm of unschooling, or self-directed education, or also known as self-directed education, says that everyone learns at their own pace, at their own rate, based on their own interests. And when people are learning that way, guess what? There's no such thing as failure. There's no such
Exactly.
thing, because we all have innate gifts. We all have ways that we can contribute,
Right.
to our community, right?
Yep.
So I list that and a lot of other things that I walked away from, a lot of other dominant social systems that I walked away from and what I walked towards. And then lastly, in that guide, I also broke down how to create community in the ways that you see Lawrence currently doing at Collectively Sustainable, because, he and I were organizing together, and I was building a lot of these concepts, creating a lot of these concepts, talking to him. And, he basically, mirrored what you're seeing there based on the things that I was learning, researching, sharing. And, it's basically finding, and there's things I learned, in terms of how to organize and find like-hearted, like-minded people, start small, and then just figuring out how to, walk away together, ultimately
Right.
walk away from these dominant systems together.
Yep.
And then create a network and join a network of other people that are doing it. And again, sharing, knowledge and resources and skills with one another. And ultimately where we're going to a place where we can create, where we're creating, social systems rooted in power, within collaboration, that are running right alongside of our dominance, power over and control systems like capitalism, so that ultimately we build such a firm and solid infrastructure that more and more people will be able to walk away, and then we can all live in that paradigm where all of our needs are met, and we no longer have to straddle the fence. We no longer have to make compromises, and if it's not, I'll say it like this: I feel like we're going to a place where a lot of us will be able to see it, but most importantly, the next generation and the generations behind us will really be able to have options that we didn't have.
Yes, that was one of the main reasons why I felt like I had to take this responsibility so seriously. Of once I got an understanding of natural law and how important it was for the changes that we need to see, was my children.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I've had a pretty good life, but they're just getting started. And this is insanity that they're living in, and I know it's insanity.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I going to do about it? So
Yeah.
they were one of the biggest motivational factors for me to start this podcast and do the work on myself and try to spread this message the
Yes.
best that I can to the most people that I can. So yeah, that's I agree with you wholeheartedly on that vision, for that and for the generations to come. So what role do you feel like bartering will play in our new paradigm?
So I think bartering is a nice, stepping stone towards where I ultimately believe we need to get to, which is the gifts economy. But bartering, I think bartering is more digestible for those of us who, like all of us who've been indoctrinated in capitalism and the idea that we have to exchange money, for goods and services. What bartering does is it gets us away from saying that we need a middle, man, for lack of a better term, or a middle fiduciary element in order to exchange our skills and resources. Because if you think about it, everything that exists on this earth was created by another human. And
Right. We're
why do we
already
need,
creating this stuff. Right.
yeah, why do we need a middleman, to feed ourselves, to clothe ourselves, to protect ourselves, to house ourselves? We literally are like we've been conditioned into this system of like, giving our time and energy away from our paycheck to go then pay for the things we need instead of just getting rid of all that and just doing the things we need to do for each other. Like it's literally that simple. All
Yeah.
these skills that all of us are giving,
Yep.
have either currently giving or have given to the corporate world, right? Um, in order to get a paycheck so that we can buy the things we need, but guess what? More importantly, buy a lot of things we don't need
Don't need.
to keep that system going and continue to extract our time and our energy and our skills and a whole lot of natural resources to build and create things
Oh,
that people don't really need. You know, is so hurtful for the environment as well as human well-being. We weren't created to work as much as we do. We weren't created to have to work that much, etc. But I get away. I'm kind of on a tangent, but bartering, it just gives us that pathway to exercise the ability to say, you have a skill, you have a resource that I could use. I have a skill and resource that you can use. Let's just share that with each other and eliminate all those other elements, those other artificial elements that are getting in the way of a very natural process, which
mm-hmm.
is everything in nature is designed to take care of itself. Everything in nature balances. Everything in
Yes.
nature symbiosis, and all
Yes.
these things are natural processes. Humans have created all these systems on top of natural systems that have gotten in the way and create a
Well,
lot
they're
of
so
imbalance
unnatural.
that
They're
are
like
very
so out of
unnatural.
harmony with nature.
Yes. And that's why we're seeing so many issues, because we're so out of alignment with nature. And the whole capitalistic structure and all that stuff is an example. But bartering is so important because it's a stepping stone to exercise that, exchange to get us ultimately where I think we need to go again, which is the gifts economy. And that's where we're just sharing our gifts without the expectation of anything in return, because we trust that if I share a gift with you, Cynthia, I trust that you or somebody else in our community are going to meet my needs when I have a need. And we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to have a scarcity mindset,
Right.
or fear mindset. Our needs are going to be naturally met because that's how nature was designed. And I'll give you an
Yes.
example of that. If you think about the oxygen carbon dioxide cycle, none of us walk around worrying about if there's going to be enough oxygen tomorrow. None of us look at the trees and the plants and say, how much oxygen have you created today, and put them on some type of,
Right.
time sheet, and they got to
Right.
produce an X amount. But guess what's real? Because I looked all this up. Every plant and tree don't all put out the same amount of oxygen. But guess what? All our needs are met. You know why? It's because it's the collective. It's the
Yeah.
collective of all of the plants and the trees that meet that need of ours, and then vice versa. It's the collective of all of the animals like humans who breathe out carbon dioxide that meets their need, because they use carbon dioxide to make their food so that they can continue their life cycle. We don't have to think about that. And here's the thing,
Right.
if humans didn't get in the way, we wouldn't have to think about any of our needs either if we didn't have all these other artificial systems in the way, because they will all naturally get met in the
Yeah.
same way. That's the gift
Yes.
economy.
Yes. I love that. I had not heard that term before, gift economy. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. And like you said, that is so in harmony with nature, because like you said, everything else in nature works like that except for us.
Except for us.
So that should tell us all something that we are
Mm-hmm.
completely out of sync with nature. And look at the result.
Yeah.
It's a mess. It's a
A
mess
mess.
full of suffering, misery,
Mm-hmm.
illness, and so
Mental
many
illness,
negative things,
loneliness.
mental illness, physical illness.
Yep.
Our natural environment is just completely being
Mm-hmm.
destroyed because we are living totally out of sync with nature, and we're not living in a natural rhythm and cycle.
Yep.
So yeah, that was powerful. I really like that term, gift economy. I like that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. So that kind of brings me, and we've kind of been, I think, tying it in and weaving it in all along. But so why do you think that understanding natural law, which is what I teach, is so important for, why do you think that's important for community building, that people understand how nature works and the natural laws that govern the universe?
So before I answer that, can you give me your definition of natural law?
Yes, natural law basically kind of just means the bare bones is do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
So it means you do no harm to another. It's all kind of based on stealing. All violations are stealing. So whether you're stealing a life or telling a lie, you're stealing away someone's ability to discern the truth, or you're stealing, maybe something, a physical object from them. So it's do no harm, do no stealing. You don't harm anyone unless it's in self-defense. So that's kind of like your basis, but it also encompasses like the Hermetic principles. It encompasses living in harmony with nature, because you can replace natural law with God's law or universal law or spiritual law. They're all the same thing. It's just
Okay.
based on living within the natural guidelines or the natural principles of
Yes.
this universe.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Now, okay, now can you ask me the question again?
Yes. So why do you think that it will be important for people to understand natural law while we're building this new paradigm and building our communities?
I think it's important because we spoke to something earlier around the idea of trusting your intuition. Another way of understanding that is, having self-love instead of and just trusting your, who you are, your inner voice. Really trusting your inner voice. And I believe when you talk about natural law, that's really what it's all about. Is saying, show up in the world as your most authentic self, and
Yes.
know
Yes.
that has all the value. You don't have to like achieve anything to be quote unquote successful. You are already enough. You were born enough. You were born with a purpose, and literally just waking up every day and doing what you feel naturally driven and called to do. That is what nature needs to keep the balance going. For
Yes.
me, and that's literally tapping into your authentic self. Not doing it because someone said this is what you need to do if you want to make a lot of money. This is what you need to do if you want to be a celebrity. This is what you want to do if you want to have a lot of followers. This is what you need to do if you want to be considered successful. This is what you need to do. All these things that we are taught to do to get along in life, they go against natural law. And natural law is truly the only thing that I believe will bring people that intrinsic happiness and healthiness that we all,
Yep.
desire, that people are chasing and being told that those other things will bring. And ultimately, we've seen so many examples now. We don't need any more evidence that that's not true. There's so many
Right.
people who have achieved all those societal markers of success, whether it be status, money, etc. And a lot of them are miserable. They're either miserable, they're depressed. And some people we've seen in the last 10, 15 years, a lot of them have committed suicide. And people are
Yes.
like, what? That person committed suicide? They got everything. No, they don't, because they weren't in touch with themselves. They didn't have themselves.
Yep. Oh my gosh. You can say that like 10 more times. They didn't have themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, Yes, getting in touch with your authentic self and living from a place of
Yes.
integrity and just being in tune with yourself. And like you said, loving yourself, not feeling like, oh, I have to have this much money, or I have to look like this, or I have to
Yes.
have this kind of job,
Woo.
or I have to have this kind of
Woo.
status to be
Yes.
valuable.
Yes.
No, you don't need none of that. You're
Yes.
automatic. You're born valuable.
Yes. And
Born valuable.
you said the
So,
looks part too. That's a whole nother platform I
oh,
get on sometimes. Thank you for
yes.
saying that. Thank you for saying that one too, because that's another thing society will have you thinking that you got to look a certain way to be
Third way.
deemed valid or desirable or et cetera. And that's like,
Yes.
it's so not true.
Yes.
It's so
Yes.
not true. Society puts people in a small box to say what attraction looks like and what's hot and what's sexy and all these different things, and have so many people chasing something that's not true. But then if you really look at
Yep.
nature and you observe, man, people love people no matter how they look.
They do.
It's people that love them. It's people that's attracted to
Yep.
them no matter how they look. There's people that are attracted to energy more than looks. There's so many ways that humans show up and attract
Yes.
other humans into their lives that have
Yes.
nothing to do with looks.
Yes. That energy, I don't think there could be a bigger magnet of attraction is someone's energy. I
Mm-hmm.
really not if you're trying to attract someone else who's, authentic in an authentic place. Now, if you're trying to attract someone that's, into material stuff, that's different.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for like, a deep, meaningful, authentic relationship with someone, your energy is what's going to draw them in more than anything else. In
Indeed.
my opinion, absolutely.
Indeed.
So,
Indeed.
oh yes, this has been. So I'm gonna open this up for any questions or comments. I know we've talked about a lot, and I just have so much going through my mind. This has been a great conversation. Any questions or comments so far?
What up? What up? What up? What up? Y'all doing all right?
Hey,
Doing all right. What's
yes.
good?
Everything is very, very nice. Great episode. I guess you said thus far.
Thank you.
I love how you can say a lot without saying too much, and that goes for both Cynthia and brother. How do you say your name?
Sundiata.
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 Sundiata. Pardon me. Sundiata.
Yes.
Sounds powerful.
Thank you.
I like how you guys can put things in a concise manner that like covers things, like dumping a bunch of paint on the wall and it just covers the whole wall all at once, because y'all said so much in so little time.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. So okay, as far as collective sustainability and bringing people to elevated states of cooperation, I'll just put it like that, where we can elevate each other's understanding and willingness, right? Action, care, true care, as far as being collective or being a collective, being a real collective or a real community with a real set of goals. You talked a little bit about unlearning, learning, and I want to word it the right way, but like trying. My question is for today, how can we target those that are not fully lost in the practice part, right? In the trying part. Because, one of my favorite kind of shorter presentations by Mark Passio, he was talking about how what in certain conscious circles we call the sleeping masses are 100% a part of us and reflections of us, even in the conscious and freedom-seeking communities, right? Everybody is still a mirror. Yeah. And so there's still a mission if we say that we want more harmony on Earth and we want more sustainability on Earth and we want to get out of the lies about, population control would help that, or, all of the lies that come from these people. how do we in the practice part target those that are pretty lost but not too far gone?
I will let you answer.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're doing it now. By Cynthia creating this platform and sharing her truth and her passion and the knowledge and experiences that she's gaining, is a way to, you never know, she's dropping a seed trail, for folks to follow and pick up and just chew on based on where they are. And some folks are just going to get a little, and some are take a little more. But over time, as those of us who are on this journey are continuing to share our journey and doing it with a heart of compassion, it's going to feel safer for others to join us. So I think continuing to walk out in the directions that we're walking and leaving that trail for others to follow by sharing it, and so that they could see, hold on, they're really living it over there, and they're thriving in it. And I think that's one of the ways that we'll get more and more folks to continue to join us.
Yeah, I agree. The example of once we can really get this going, I think when they can see it in real life, I think that's going to be probably the most powerful thing we can do, is just being that example and showing people this can be done, it can work, and this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is the energy and aura you see from people that are living outside of this system that this control system that they've created. I think that's going to be, a powerful antidote to the programming and the control system. And like you said, also just planting them seeds, drop a little seed here, drop a little seed there. Somebody else may come along and water that, or they might have an event happen in their life that they're like, wait a minute, I remember, Cynthia told me something about this, and now look, you know what I mean? They'll see, it was something to what I said that time, so I agree with him. Dropping them seeds is a big deal. It might not seem like it's helping, but it can't hurt,
Right, 100%. And last thing, you touched on the initiatives that you're a part of and the ideas that you have for bartering, or even just sharing with no middleman, as far as a monetary requirement for this and that, when just sharing
Yes.
is what
a crazy concept.
Yeah, what a wild thing to think. We can share with each other. I just wanted to say that aligns very, very closely with my own thinking. I wrote a book about pretty much just that, where in the first couple chapters, I just outline, the whole money thing is great as far as an idea, and it's very complicated and sophisticated and cool, but it's fake. It's not real. And so if we can use it, and then like a hammer, when we're done or when it's not necessary for the organization of, what the process is going to be, if we can put that tool down and forget about it until it's needed again, till it's absolutely necessary, because the project is so, like the resources and the timing and the personnel of the project is so big that we need to pick up this tool again, we just leave it down, right? And plant more trees that bear fruit. Like there's laws against planting trees that bear fruit on highways and in the cities limits and, certain county limits and stuff. You just can't plant tree unless it's on your own property. You can't even plant trees that bear food.
Yeah, that's wild.
And such. Wild.
Yeah.
That's why when you drive, there's no food, right? But then you go to the islands and you drive and there's just food.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, look, two
everywhere.
And so anyway, I thought that was really great to hear that, and I hope that this gets out to a lot of people so that we're going to share it like we always do. But that's very aligned with my thinking, and I also hope you. I don't know. I hope.
Tell them where they can find your book too. I'm almost finished. Tell them where they can find your book. It's called Culture Control, and it's all about how money is controlling our culture. And so tell them where they can find the book, please.
So if you go to Ufulu Child's social media, we are on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we are on a whole bunch of stuff, YouTube, and you click like the link in whatever it is. If it's Instagram, it's the bio. If it's Facebook, it's the about thing section. If it's YouTube, it's in the description. But you go to our link tree, linktr.ee/Ufulu Child, spelled UFULU child. And it's like the third or fourth link in there.
Okay. And I also have it on my resources page on the website. There's a hyperlink. You can click on it and order it that way too, because it is a powerful book that I think everyone should read.
I'm glad you're almost done. All right, y'all. Love and peace.
Thank you for all you shared, and thank you for the work that you're doing and putting out.
Yes, absolutely. Were there any more questions or comments? No? Okay. Well,
Tensy's on the. She want to say. My wife want to say something.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome, Tensy.
Good day, loves. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much, because this just lit my whole heart up, and it is very much so aligned with some things that my spirit has been calling me to become more intentional about when it comes to community building where we are in Austin, Texas. And one of the things that yesterday was just brought up to me, which sounds a lot like what you all are talking about and describing when talking about a gift sharing society, bartering, collectively sustainable. It was a concept that someone told me that they were considering here in Austin called banking. I wasn't sure if anyone has anyone ever heard of time banking?
Time banking. I have not.
Yes, I've heard of time banking.
Okay, awesome. So I was curious, and for those that have not heard of it, I just heard about this yesterday, and there's apparently a whole website around time banking and software and all this stuff where it makes it so that, well, here's an excerpt about it. It says time banks track the hours members earn by helping others and the hours they spend receiving help. All hours are valued equally, whether for professional services or simple neighborly assistance. For every hour of help given, a member earns one quote unquote time dollar or time credit, which the recipient can repay by helping someone else. So I was curious about what your thoughts were about utilizing a time banking software or system, because it sounds like collectively sustainable app is similar to time banking in the sense of bartering and people showing up and sharing their gifts from their heart, and not necessarily receiving anything from that person that you shared with, but if you need something, then you can reach out to other people that are in the community. But specific to time making software, where it's like an exchange system for bartering in the way that I described. What are your thoughts on how it would impact the integrity of collectively sustainable community building?
I like that.
At scale. At scale.
Yeah. I think that it's another logical next step that can bring a lot of value. Indeed. Currently collectively sustainable is optional. Some folks exchange money. They do exchange money, and some folks have like member prices for certain things versus non-member prices for certain things. And then some folks choose to barter. So it's a conversation. So it's not strictly bartering. And the collectively sustainable, community, basically does that through another app called Farm Fresh 24/7, where people share. It's full of like makers, bakers, and growers who share, the things they make, bake, and grow, as well as service providers. That's the platform that manages it all. Is Farm Fresh 24/7, and farmfresh247.com or the mobile app Farm Fresh 24/7. And with that said, I do think that time banking is another way. It's another way for people to continue to transition away from, exchanging dollars for hours. And it's another way to level the playing field and get out of the idea that someone's time is somehow worth more than someone else's. Someone's skills are somehow worth more than someone else's. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people to unlearn. So it's a good way to practice it as a logical next step towards the ultimate goal that I mentioned before, which is gifts economy, which would take a lot of trust. And it's going to take time for people, depending on where they are in their unlearning process and their evolution as a community, to get to the point where they truly trust that they can do something for another community member and not worry about it and their needs will be met. But everyone's not there yet. So I think that things like bartering and time banking, meet that need to, usher people along as they continue to, journey.
Yeah, I had never heard of that before. I thank you for bringing that up, Tincy. I had not heard of that. I like that concept. Like I said, that's a great in between before we can get to where we're, trying to get to with the, the pure, gift economy. Because like I said, definitely as a collective, we're not there yet. We're not ready yet. Which is another reason why I think, it's so important to spread the word of natural law and the teachings of natural law, because it is all about respecting your fellow man and never stealing anything from them, not their time, nothing. So when people can really take that and embody that as just a way of life, like just a natural way of life, like you don't even consider, not living like that, because it's just kind of like, second nature. Until we get to that point, we definitely need some kind of in between systems while we're getting there, as a collective, for sure. Any other questions, comments, anything? This has been good, guys.
Just to follow up.
Yeah.
I was, in terms of, because I love your responses, and that's my daughter on me in the background.
She's just talking.
Right. One of the things that I was thinking through is because we have partnerships that we're looking to build with other organizations that may be like bigger nonprofits to kind of link people together in our community. And while it seems as though they may not be able to just on the ready rock out with the trust vibe on bartering services and goods, especially if it's not for something like a predetermined raffle and an event or something that they can track. I was thinking that this could be something that would be helpful, but one thing that you brought to my attention, that this discussion keeps bringing to my attention, is the importance to have it really grounded in deep principles, and again stressing those universal law, the natural law, the spiritual law principles throughout the whole process of building community.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah, because I just feel like there's no way that we won't end up, even if we make some great strides and really turn things around, if we don't embrace these principles, especially the idea of the hierarchy and authority, what you call it, power over, correct?
Yes.
If that is still in play, you will always circle right back around to where we're at right now. It's inevitable. It's inevitable. Yep.
So and that's what I talk about. That's what I talk about in my theory of indivisibility. And I list out, these power. I list out power over systems, and I also list out tools of oppression. And I say that you have to actively reject tools of oppression and embrace the tools of liberation. It has to be a both and. It can't just be, I'm just going to live into these tools of liberation. No, if you don't first, audit yourself in your relationship to these tools of oppression and
Yeah.
decide that you're going to stop using them on yourself and others,
Yeah.
then you're going to end up self-oppressing and continue to oppress others unintentionally, you know.
Right.
And if you're not aware of the way that the dominant social systems a lot of times unintentionally cause harm, you know,
Hmm.
like you said, Cynthia, you're absolutely right. You're going to just, ultimately, we're going to reproduce, the things that we're trying to get away from.
Right. Right. Yep. Absolutely. So, we have to embrace these natural law principles, and like you said, that principle of indivisibility. I love that whole concept that theory of indivisibility. I love that concept that you came up with, because it's so important that we relate to each other in a way where we respect each other's um, own independence
Hmm.
and right to self-govern. As
Yes.
long as I'm not harming someone else, I have a right to
Yes.
self-govern.
Yes. Yes.
I
I
feel like
love it.
so
I
many
love it.
people are actually like they've been so conditioned in brainwashed. They're scared to self-govern.
Yeah.
They're that idea terrifies them to self-govern because of the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah. And so many people also love to project their morality onto others, and they
Yes.
love to hold others accountable to their morality. Whereas people, if folks truly want to get away from being oppressors, they need to govern themselves by their morality and stop
Yes.
projecting it onto others and respect other people's agency, like you
Yes.
said, to self-govern and to live into their authenticity, even if it looks completely different than what your authenticity looks like or your beliefs or moralities look like.
Right.
And we talk about something in our series, as my life partner Shani is also my partner in over at sustainablesolutionsmedia.com. She writes a lot of essays and articles, and she talks about knowing the difference between morals and ethics, and how morals are a tool of oppression, but ethics are a tool of liberation. There's a difference. I won't get into the nuances of that, but so many people hold basically wield power over and control, shame, blame, energy, because they project their morality onto other people instead of letting folks, like you said, govern themselves and have agency. And another way I like to say it is everyone should be able to do what they want, believe what they want, as long as it doesn't impede on other people's ability to do the same.
Because yeah, and what I say, because I definitely believe there is objective morality, but what I think most people believe in is moral relativism, which is a form which leads to the oppression,
Yep.
because the morals just go willy-nilly depending on the situation. Like
Mm-hmm.
whatever is convenient for you, whatever works for you at that time, however you can manipulate the most people or use the most people or whatever, oppress the most people, that's your morals for the day. But to me, based in natural law, true morality is objective. It is simply doing no harm to another. That's it. That's the morals. So your vices and your lifestyle choices, that doesn't make you immoral because they're different than mine. It
Mm-hmm.
only makes you immoral if you are causing harm to another. That's it. That's the line for morality.
Yeah.
But people want to bring in their personal preferences for so many things and say, well, that's immoral, that's immoral, that's a sin, that's a sin.
Yeah.
And these are just your personal preferences. And you're looking maybe just at someone's vices or lifestyle choices,
Yeah.
which that has nothing to do with them being moral if they're not harming anyone.
Right.
Yeah. So these are great comments and questions. Anybody else have any comments or questions? No? Okay. Well, this has been an awesome episode. I've got to have you back on for sure, for sure, for sure. Thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast. I really appreciate it. This was, I feel like a very engaging conversation that I would love to, like I said, follow up on. And as always, I will be posting this to YouTube, to Rumble, and to my website. Within the next few days, I'll have all the pertinent links so that you can follow his work. Can you tell them again where they can find you? And also if you have any final words.
Yes. So you can find me at sustainablesolutionsmedia.com. That's a Substack page. If you're familiar with Substack, we use that as our media platform. We have, podcasts, we have articles, we have essays, etc. It's all there. all of my life's work I've put there, as well as the work I've done with my life partner, Shani, and all of her life's work on these ideas, these concepts around what we call anti-oppression and liberation work. It can be found there. And, my final words is thank you for having me on this platform, Cynthia. I'm really grateful for you and the work that you're doing to spread the message of natural law and to share it with others and allow others to come together in this context to, share our thoughts and ideas with one another. And thank you to everyone that's here live, creating, contributing your thoughts, your ideas, your questions that help enrich this conversation. And thanks to everyone who's going to watch the recording. It's truly been a pleasure. And I hope to see you all again soon, engaging over at sustainablesolutionsmedia.com and collectivelysustainable.org.
Yes, absolutely. Definitely check out both those sites. And I will have, like I said, all the links when I post this. And as always, visit affirmlifedaily.com for previous podcasts, resources, affirmations. There's so much information on there. I just recently created a very brief kind of summary PDF of natural law, kind of like an overview. So if you want to introduce natural law to someone, that's a great tool to use to introduce it because it's not overwhelming. It's like I said, it's like 4.5 pages PDF. So it's a very easy, quick read, and it goes over the main components of natural law to help people get an understanding because as you heard from this podcast, it's really important that we spread the word of natural law so people can embrace it and start embodying these principles. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. This has been fabulous. And to all you, have a great evening. Infinite grace, love, and gratitude.
Peace, y'all.